Our first guest tonight is Batman and the Vampire and a lot of other stuff, too. His latest with Zendaya is called The Drama. It opens in theaters April 3rd. Please welcome Robert Pattinson.
Hollywood has never lacked stars who rise overnight and disappear just as quickly, but few have followed a path as unconventional as Robert Pattinson's. Once an insecure boy dismissed as having no talent, he suddenly became a heartthrob adored by millions. Then, with remarkable courage, he tore away the label of a disposable teen idol and transformed himself into a formidable actor pursued by filmmakers as acclaimed as Christopher Nolan and Bong Joon-ho. Behind that dazzling success lies a suffocating darkness and one of the most extraordinary comebacks in modern Hollywood. This is the raw, turbulent journey of Robert Pattinson's life. What secret allowed a man who once hit rock bottom to shatter his past and rewrite his own destiny? Robert Douglas. Thomas Pattinson was born on May 13, 1986, in the quiet London neighborhood of Barnes. He was the youngest of three children in a middle-class family. His mother, Claire, once worked for a modeling agency, while his father, Richard, was a vintage car dealer and importer. Growing up alongside his two older sisters, Elizabeth and Victoria, young Robert was painfully shy, withdrawn, and constantly felt powerless in the world around him. At the age of 12, while attending Tower House School, a prestigious private boys' school that had educated future stars such as actor Tom Sturridge and comedian Jack Whitehall, Robert made a reckless decision in an attempt to prove himself. He secretly stole adult magazines from a local convenience store, hid them in his school bag, and sold them to his classmates. The childish business scheme was quickly exposed. The store threatened to call the police, and the school immediately expelled Robert. The humiliating incident left a deep psychological scar on the young teenager. Robert later completed his education at the Herodian School, but his insecurity continued to follow him. When he enrolled in drama classes at his new school, the drama teacher gave him a brutally dismissive assessment. Robert had absolutely no potential as an actor and would be better off staying away from the stage. The harsh criticism left Robert ashamed and devastated. He retreated further into himself and refused to audition for any school plays, terrified that he would be ridiculed. A year later, after watching their son become increasingly isolated, Robert's parents decided to intervene. Hoping to help him overcome his shyness, they suggested that he join the Barnes Theater Company, a local amateur drama group. Not because they expected him to become a star, but simply because they wanted him to learn how to communicate with others. At first, Robert was assigned minor backstage duties, including moving props, adjusting lights, and sweeping the stage. From the darkness of the wings, he quietly watched the other actors perform. Gradually, because the company needed people to fill smaller roles, Robert began receiving a few short lines. He was given opportunities to appear in well-known productions, such as Guys and Dolls, Our Town, Macbeth, and Anything Goes. The moment the stage lights touched his face, Robert discovered something astonishing. Becoming someone else allowed him to escape completely from his own fear. But how long could a shy young man, once expelled from school and written off by his own drama teacher, survive after entering the professional film industry? Alongside his interest in theater, teenage Robert Pattinson developed a deep passion for music and fashion. He worked as a photographic model for several magazines to earn money and support himself. As he approached the age of 20, he could often be seen as a tall, thin young man holding an acoustic guitar and performing in dimly lit London pubs under the stage name Bobby Dupea. He wrote his own songs and performed melancholy melodies. However, music soon took a back seat after a talent scout happened to discover him performing on stage, opening the door to a turning point in his film career. Robert's first major professional project was the German-produced television film Ring of the Nibelungs. He packed his belongings and traveled to an unfamiliar country where he worked for several months. It was the first time Robert had learned to live independently, manage his own daily needs, and endure the cold of Northern Europe. After that project, another opportunity arrived when he was cast in director Mira Nair's film Vanity Fair. On the day of the premiere, Robert eagerly went to the theater, convinced that he would finally see himself on the big screen. But when the movie ended, he was stunned to discover that every scene featuring him had been completely removed without anyone warning him. His character appeared only in the bonus material included on the DVD release. The disappointment and deep sense of rejection caused the young actor to question his own worth. Yet the Vanity Fair casting director's guilt over what had happened unexpectedly opened another door. When Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire began searching for an actor to play Cedric Diggory, she immediately recommended the melancholy-faced young Englishman. Robert entered the magical world of J.K. Rowling. His portrayal of Cedric Diggory, the tall, honorable, and handsome Hufflepuff prefect, quickly turned him into a minor sensation. The Times even named him one of Britain's future stars, while female viewers were captivated by his character's gentle smile. But the excitement did not last. After Cedric's death at the end of the film, the spotlight surrounding Robert quickly faded as well. Over the next several years, Robert struggled through audition after audition, only to face repeated rejection. He appeared in a handful of low-budget television projects, including The Bad Mother's Handbook and The Haunted Airman. His savings dwindled, and his confidence collapsed completely. At 21, sitting inside a cramped rented room in London, Robert seriously considered giving up acting and finding an ordinary job. Just as he was preparing to pack his belongings and walk away from his dream of making movies, a phone call from Los Angeles changed the course of his entire life. In 2008, Summit Entertainment began casting Twilight, a film adaptation of author Stephen E. Meyer's romantic vampire novel. The male lead, Edward Cullen, was described as a vampire of flawless beauty, dangerous yet irresistibly seductive. Robert Pattinson flew to Los Angeles exhausted, with the pressure of failure weighing heavily on him. Before entering director Catherine Hardwicke's private home for the audition, he became so overwhelmed with panic that he took a Xanax, a medication commonly used to treat severe anxiety, to keep his hands from shaking. During the audition, Robert performed an intimate bedroom scene with actress Kristen Stewart, who had already been cast as Bella Swan. In sharp contrast to Robert's own insecurity, Catherine and Kristen were immediately drawn to his strange, haunted gaze. After watching the audition tape, author Stephen E. Meyer reportedly remarked that few people possessed both the classical beauty and underlying sense of danger needed to play Edward Cullen. However, a major conflict soon erupted on set. The producers wanted Edward to be a cheerful, polite vampire who smiled frequently in order to appeal to teenage audiences. Robert, on the other hand, stubbornly defended his own artistic interpretation. He believed Edward should be a creature consumed by darkness, guilt, and inner torment after living for hundreds of years. He argued intensely with the filmmakers and nearly lost the role because of his refusal to back down. On November 21, 2008, Twilight officially arrived in theaters and triggered a global phenomenon. Almost overnight, Robert Pattinson went from an unknown actor preparing to quit the profession to the most desired heartthrob on the planet. His face appeared on countless posters, magazine covers, drinking cups, and t-shirts. Wherever he went, thousands of fans screamed until they lost their voices. But the price of fame arriving so quickly became a living nightmare. Robert could no longer leave his hotel and was constantly surrounded by paparazzi, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. On one occasion, while sitting in a car, Robert realized that as many as 8 paparazzi vehicles had been following him relentlessly for 10 straight hours through street after street. He was forced to hide inside car trunks in order to travel unnoticed and change hotels every night. The private life of a 22-year-old young man had been completely erased. The public's obsession transformed him into a global phenomenon. But at the same time, the title of vampire heartthrob became an invisible iron cage imprisoning the artist within. The spectacular success of the first film led to a string of sequels: New Moon in 2009, Eclipse in 2010, Breaking Dawn, Part 1 in 2011, and Breaking Dawn, Part 2 in 2012. The Twilight franchise swept through theaters around the world, earning more than $3.3 billion. Robert Pattinson became a proven box office draw and accumulated an enormous fortune. Yet behind those impressive financial numbers was a serious decline in critical reception. Reviewers showed little mercy toward the increasingly melodramatic and awkward scripts. Despite his efforts as an actor, Robert Pattinson remained trapped in the image of a pale, powdered vampire who frowned and stared blankly into the camera. In the eyes of Hollywood's professional establishment at the time, Robert was merely a short-lived commercial product. A star who had risen because of his appearance, not because of genuine talent. Robert himself understood that reality very clearly. He found comfort in viewing Twilight as a financial safety net. He used the enormous paychecks from the commercial franchise to buy himself opportunities to appear in smaller films, projects in which he no longer had to play a lovesick vampire. In 2008, between Twilight installments, he took on the role of painter Salvador Dalí in the independent film Little Ashes. In 2010, he served as executive producer and lead actor in the psychological drama Remember Me. In 2012, he collaborated with director David Cronenberg on Cosmopolis, which was selected to compete for the Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival. Although these films did not generate major box office results, they revealed the quiet ambition growing inside Robert. He wanted to be recognized as a real actor. At the same time, the media and the public shifted their attention toward his private life. The real-life romance between Robert Pattinson and his Twilight co-star Kristen Stewart became one of the most closely followed stories in the world. Fans went wild at the sight of Bella and Edward becoming a couple beyond the screen. In 2009, Robert officially began dating Kristen when she turned 19. He treated the relationship with great care, keeping it private and protecting it from the media spotlight. Together, they became symbols of young love in Hollywood. He even quietly purchased a luxurious home in Los Angeles, reportedly planning to propose and build a long-term family life with his co-star. He had no idea that a media storm was about to sweep through their lives and destroy every peaceful plan he had made. In July 2012, only a few months before the final Twilight film reached theaters, Us Weekly suddenly published a series of shocking photographs. Kristen Stewart had been captured embracing and passionately kissing director Rupert Sanders, a 41-year-old married man who had directed Snow White and the Huntsman, the film in which Kristen had recently appeared. The photographs spread at extraordinary speed, triggering a global media explosion. Kristen Stewart soon issued a public apology to Robert. "I'm deeply sorry for the hurt and embarrassment I've caused. This momentary indiscretion has jeopardized the most important thing in my life, the person I love and respect the most, Rob." For Robert Pattinson, it was a devastating blow. The woman he trusted most, the person who had stood beside him through the most chaotic years of fame, had betrayed him in full view of the entire world. In the days that followed, Robert made no dramatic public statement. At night, he quietly packed his belongings, took his small dog, and left the Los Angeles home they had recently purchased together. He hid away at a close friend's private ranch, refusing interviews and avoiding public appearances. The mansion where he had once dreamed of building a family was soon placed on the market. By 2013, after several unsuccessful attempts at reconciliation, the couple officially went their separate ways. The Twilight saga had ended, the celebrated romance had collapsed, and Robert's image as a glamorous leading man seemed to disappear with it. Many believed that at 27, Robert Pattinson had already reached his peak and was beginning an irreversible decline. He had lost his girlfriend, lost the only blockbuster franchise associated with his name, and had been labeled Hollywood's pitiful loser. But at the lowest point of that emotional devastation, Robert Pattinson made a decision that no one in Hollywood could have predicted. The truth was that Robert Pattinson's disappearance from major Hollywood blockbusters after 2012 was not an accidental career decline. Behind his decision to turn down multi-million-dollar contracts was a calculated and ruthless escape plan. Robert realized that Hollywood fame and the image of Edward Cullen had become a poison, destroying his ability to grow as an actor. He decided to erase the version of himself the world had created. Robert rejected every offer for commercial films, handsome leading man roles, and glamorous heroes. Instead, he deliberately sought out the darkest, strangest, and most demanding independent filmmakers, directors who had no interest whatsoever in his Twilight fame. He threw himself into a process of genuine self-punishment, determined to strip away the polished image that had defined him. In May 2014, he appeared at the Cannes Film Festival with two independent films, The Rover and Maps to the Stars. In The Rover, Robert played Ray, a naive, emaciated criminal with chipped teeth and an unstable mind. Even the famously demanding film critic from The Guardian described Robert's performance as an astonishing surprise. In 2016, while preparing to play explorer Henry Costin in The Lost City of Z, Robert moved into the Colombian jungle. He grew a thick beard, survived on only a few cans of sardines each day, and lost as much as 15 kilograms. There was almost no trace left of the Edward Cullen audiences once knew. In 2017, Robert reached a major career turning point with the Safdie brothers thriller Good Time. He played Connie Nikas, an exhausted and reckless bank robber living at the bottom of New York society. Robert bleached his hair, stayed in rundown apartments, and wandered the streets to disappear into the role. The film received a 6-minute standing ovation at Cannes, and critics called it the greatest performance of his career. While promoting Good Time, Robert also wrote and starred in a short film titled Fear and Shame. One detail from the film offered a brutally honest glimpse into his psychological state. The entire story followed Robert as he covered his head, wore dark sunglasses, lived in a state of panic, and did everything possible to avoid crowds for one simple reason: to buy a hot dog from a New York street vendor without being recognized. His fear of fame had turned even the most ordinary human need into a psychological battle. In 2019, he pushed himself to the limit in director Robert Eggers's black-and-white psychological horror film, The Lighthouse. Robert and actor Willem Dafoe lived in isolation on a rugged, remote island in Nova Scotia, enduring real storms, drinking real alcohol, and rolling through mud and filth. Robert even made himself dizzy by swallowing seawater and physically hurting himself in order to reach the character's state of madness. For nearly a decade, Robert Pattinson accepted modest paychecks and worked under the harshest conditions imaginable to wash away the makeup of Twilight. He succeeded in transforming himself from a commercial product into one of the leading actors in independent cinema. That quiet accumulation of experience in the darkness would eventually bring him back into the spotlight in a way no one expected. In 2019, legendary director Christopher Nolan began preparing to film the massive blockbuster Tenet. While searching for an actor to play Neil, a mysterious, calm, and intelligent operative, Nolan did not turn to the biggest box office stars of the moment. The person he personally contacted was Robert Pattinson. Nolan explained that he had followed Robert's independent films for years and had recognized in him a sharp artistic intelligence and an extraordinary command of the camera. Around the same time, Warner Brothers and director Matt Reeves announced that Robert Pattinson would become the new Batman in The Batman. The announcement immediately ignited another wave of controversy across social media. Many DC Comics fans strongly objected, arguing that the Twilight guy did not have the muscles or the hardened presence required to wear Batman's armor. But director Matt Reeves defended his decision. He stated bluntly, "If you only know Robert from Twilight, it's because you haven't been paying attention to cinema for the past 6 years. What he has done in independent films is truly astonishing." Robert entered The Batman as though he were gambling his entire career. He committed himself to intense physical training and studied the depression, isolation, and psychological darkness of Bruce Wayne. During one interview, he jokingly remarked, "If this movie fails, I'll move into adult films." In March 2022, The Batman officially arrived in theaters. Robert Pattinson's version of the character was investigative, dark, wounded, and so emotionally raw that it gave audiences chills. The film earned more than $770 million and received widespread praise from critics. Robert had not only proven the doubters wrong, he had established himself as one of the rare actors capable of balancing serious artistic cinema with mainstream entertainment. The door to even greater heights had officially opened. After the success of The Batman, Robert Pattinson no longer needed to prove himself to anyone. He became an actor actively pursued by some of the greatest cinematic minds in the world. Oscar-winning director Bong Joon-ho, following the historic success of Parasite, chose Robert for the leading role in his science fiction project Mickey 17. Bong Joon-ho explained that he needed an actor capable of expressing innocence while also appearing raw and feral, and Robert Pattinson was the only person who could deliver both. In the film, Robert had to portray several different clone versions of the same character, presenting an extraordinarily complex acting challenge. Christopher Nolan also invited him to collaborate again on the large-scale epic The Odyssey, scheduled for release in 2026, where Robert would appear alongside names such as Matt Damon, Tom Holland, and Zendaya. He also joined A24's thriller Primetime, appeared in Die, My Love with Jennifer Lawrence, and was confirmed as part of Dune, Part 3. At the same time, Robert continued preparing to return as Bruce Wayne in The Batman Part 2 under the direction of Matt Reeves. Once dismissed by a drama teacher as someone with no talent, and later mocked as a disposable teen heartthrob, Robert Pattinson entered his late 30s, standing at the summit of world cinema. He had earned the respect of his colleagues, the affection of audiences, and the trust of the most important directors on the planet. But Robert's greatest victory was not found in awards or blockbuster films. It was found in the fact that he had finally discovered peace within himself. After the turmoil and heartbreak of his past relationship, Robert Pattinson became intensely private about his personal life. He refused to discuss romance with the press and fiercely protected his private space. In 2018, he began dating British actress and singer Suki Waterhouse. There were no loud scandals or carefully staged publicity campaigns. The couple quietly remained together over the years. Close friends reportedly revealed that with Suki, Robert found a level of understanding, respect, and peace he had never experienced before. In December 2023, the couple officially became engaged. In March 2024, they welcomed their first daughter. The arrival of his child completely transformed the man who had once been consumed by fear and anxiety. In an open interview, Robert spoke about becoming a father for the first time with a radiant smile. He admitted that he had absolutely no idea what to prepare and approached fatherhood with the bewilderment of someone planning a journey to a distant country. Robert enthusiastically described the simple happiness of holding his daughter each day and being captivated by the incredible scent of a newborn baby. Suki Waterhouse later revealed that although Robert had always been an anxious person, the moment he entered the delivery room and began caring for their child, he became an extraordinarily calm and loving father, and the strongest source of support for both mother and daughter. The 22-year-old young man who once needed anti-anxiety medication before an audition, and who once hid inside car trunks to escape the crowds, had become a mature, confident, and happy man with a family of his own. Robert Pattinson's journey is one of Hollywood's most inspiring stories. The story of a man who dared to abandon the easy road and choose the more difficult one, who threw away a commercial crown and sharpened his abilities in the darkness. He proved that fame may arrive through luck, but respect must be earned through a decade of persistence. Today, whether he is wearing Batman's armor or appearing in films by Bong Joon-ho and Christopher Nolan, Robert Pattinson is no longer running from the shadow of Twilight. He is finally himself, a genuine artist, a happy father, and an irreplaceable cinematic icon.